Redefine.
Let yourself be redefined. Let yourself be redefined.
You got the power.
All right, guys, welcome back. Thanks for joining me tonight on another episode of Brotox and Chill. Tonight's guest is actually our first female guest, and I couldn't be any more excited to have her on. Just to give you some background and some context, this is someone who's not just an injector. She's somebody that's been shaping the industry for over 20 years now. Okay, 20 plus years in the game. She's currently the director of injectables and skincare at Bucky Plastic Surgery, certified plastic surgery nurse. Again, she's been at it for over 20 years. Looking at her, you wouldn't guess it. You'd think that she just got her degree maybe 3 years ago. She's a trainer, speaker, an educator in the industry, and just an overall powerhouse. And I am honored to have her on tonight. So please please join me in welcoming Kimmi Ragone to tonight's episode. Hey, Kimmi.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you for carving out the time. So before we get any further, I've been wondering, and I actually meant to ask you off camera, did I pronounce your last name correctly?
You did.
Okay.
Ragone is good, but the Italian version is Ragone, so they all work.
Ragone or Ragone. So it is Italian. Is that your background?
My father is Italian and my mother is Polish, so it's a nice blend.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Nice until you get angry.
Exactly.
Right on. Right on. Cool. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us today. You have one of the busiest schedules I have ever seen. It's nice to see that you do make a little bit of time for some self-care. You recently got back from vacay, I believe.
I did. I spent a little time in Grand Cayman with another injector friend of mine, Melissa Giordano from up in Paramus, New Jersey at Dr. Breslow's practice. And we've both been at this quite a while. And so every once in a while we book a conference and then say, hey, do you want to just take a vacation? And I think it's a healthy thing to do in our industry. We spend a lot of time with our clients, and it's really important that you take a little time out every once in a while and regroup for yourself so you can come back refreshed and ready to tackle the day.
I would agree with that 100%. So Grand Cayman Islands, we're going to come back to that in another segment and talk a little bit about your travel do's and don'ts and your must-haves. I've never been, but it's definitely on the list. I love the Caribbean. So let's set the scene a little bit, Kimmi. So where are you right now? You're currently at home. I again was talking about the beautiful background and the whole vibe that you have going on.
Yeah, I'm here at home in Center City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, and I've been living here since college, really. When I went to nursing school here in Philadelphia, I decided to stay. I originally grew up in the South Jersey area, but Philadelphia quickly became my new home, and I've been here ever since. So my journey in nursing really started here in Philadelphia, and it's continuing on. I would have never dreamed I would have stayed put for as long as I have, but my early journey out of nursing school really took me to Pennsylvania Hospital, part of the University of Pennsylvania, which is pretty nationally known health system. And I actually started working in a completely different area. I was in high-risk neonatal care, so really high-risk pregnancies and mother and baby care. And I got interested in education then. I taught some classes for baby care basics. So for any of you who are dads, you'll kind of know what that is because they almost mandatorily make you attend before you can take your baby home.
Absolutely.
So you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
But that was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I spent about 5 years doing that. And then after working like every holiday and every weekend, like so many hospital employees do, I decided, let me look at what doesn't do like every holiday and every weekend. And I came across a position in the operating room. So that sort of led me in a completely different direction. Loved it immediately. Loved meeting patients and really easing their fears through, their surgical journey. And 6 months into my orientation for the OR, which happened to be very long back then, because I'll date myself right now. It was 6 months of orientation for the operating room at the time. But that's where I met Dr. Louis Bucky, who I've been employed with for the better part of 26 years now. So
Wow.
I met Dr. Bucky, and he sort of introduced me to the very early version of aesthetics, which was really like chemical peels and skincare. It evolved later into some laser, so early IPL, laser hair removal, things of that nature. But I had this beautiful benefit of having the background in the OR from a board certified plastic surgeon that does facelifts, eyelids, body surgeries, breast, tummy tucks, mommy makeovers, the whole deal. And we're doing a lot of men and women, and it really gave me this solid foundation in anatomy from the inside out rather than from the outside trying to figure out what's on the inside, learning as an injector. So I really had a solid foundation in anatomy from some of the best people in the industry because Dr. Bucky is very, very connected that way. He's a very big educator in the aesthetic and plastic surgery space. And as, longtime employees, we have the benefit of joining him on many of these meetings. I've listened to the best docs in the country on the podium talk about surgical interventions, and then later as aesthetics evolved, all the non-surgical inventions. And it's just really been a great sort of journey into getting into what we're talking about tonight. So it started out obviously with a lot of women because we are a little more inclined to really get down with our looks and do the things that make us feel a little more youthful, a little more well rested or rejuvenated. But then we start pecking at our husbands and our boyfriends to come on in and participate as well. So my practice evolved very naturally that way, partly because we are in Center City and it is a very large, melting pot type of population here. Is I think we were the 5th largest city in the nation when I started. I'm not sure where we still sit, but with that many opportunities here in the city, I got to meet a lot of my male patients from the surgical side. They converted into some of the, tox and the fillers as they became available. And I got to meet a lot of people's husbands, and boyfriends along the way. And I really, truly enjoy all of my patients, but I do have a special place in my heart for all of my guys. It's a unique thing to be able to say that you treat 30% men in your practice in aesthetics today. I'd say probably on average, it's closer to like 1 to maybe 3%, maybe 5% in a couple of people's practices, but I don't think there are that many. Now that we have more men entering aesthetics, I hope that their practices grow and that they're treating a lot of guys as well. But it's certainly a wonderful opportunity to be able to say that there are so many men who trust me with their care. And it's been a really great journey to include them in this process. So I love that you have this forum here for men in, this industry to talk about the business side and the, provider side. It's really nice. It's good for patients out there to be able to hear all that as well. So really excited to talk some more this evening.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Kimmi. You shared a lot. You actually answered a couple of the questions that I had for you without even having to ask them. That's quite the story and quite the journey. What a blessing that you've been on. I'm curious to ask you, though, so going back to the beginning, so you originally got into nursing. Was your original plan to go into aesthetics, or did that just kind of happen when you met Dr. Bucky?
Aesthetics kind of didn't exist. I got out of nursing school in 1995. So there really wasn't much of this. I was very fortunate that Dr. Bucky was linked up with University of Pennsylvania, and he was an associate professor, and he knew a woman who had really opened their skin clinic there. Her name was Betsy Rubenstone, and she really started everything at UPenn. I don't even think that building's been long since knocked down and built into a mega skyscraper for other services, including plastics today. But, I went after my, shifts at the hospital. I'd be done at 3 in the afternoon, and I would go spend from 3 to 7 p.m. treating her skin patients and learning everything about the skin and acne and rosacea and, all kinds of derm issues. And learning that piece was what I didn't really fully know coming right from the operating room. I knew everything underneath. So that sort of came full circle for me after training with her and learning about the early aspects of aesthetics. We did a lot of exfoliations, a lot of chemical peels. There were microdermabrasion was very popular at the time, but it didn't get much beyond that. I'd say within a few years of doing some of the skin and exfoliation work, we are starting to hear then about technology, and we were doing more laser hair removal. It became sort of popular only among dermatology and plastic surgery practices. And we can fast forward to today and see how that has evolved. I mean, there's businesses that are totally built around laser hair removal
Yep.
or tattoo removal, right?
Yep.
There's places here in Philadelphia like the Removery, and that's all they do is tattoo removal. So I
Yeah.
think it's really expanded from there, but those were the early opportunities. And because we were just exfoliating the skin and laying chemical peels and doing hydration, when you have your hands directly on someone's face for 30, 45 minutes, you really spend time interacting. You get a real sense of how to communicate, how to connect with patients. And that became invaluable later in my career as things really evolved into what we know as injectable services today, in addition to those skin services. So
Yeah.
it's been a great tool for me to be able to develop those skills early, but I wish we had the resources that are available today. It's why I'm so passionate about providing training and education to
Mm.
newer injectors, because it didn't exist back then. There was no one to talk to. I spoke to Dr. Bucky. I spoke to his friends. Fortunately for me, he had friends like Michael Caine, who, wrote the book on Botox back in the day. And he was friendly with the Carruthers, who also did a lot of the early research. And so having access to people like that early on, and all of these other plastic surgeons that he was friendly with across the country from his endeavors with educating other plastic surgeons, really became the early tools. And the people who were willing to talk to nurses and PAs and NPs back then were far and few between. It was really
course.
nice that I had that connection through plastic surgery. Med spas like we know today really didn't exist back then. They were really like skin treatment places, or they were doing endermology and services that, we don't talk too much about today, but that was the early beginnings. And so it all was born from there as to how we got to where we are now. There's a lot of evolution that happened between doing early chemical peels to where we're doing such involved full facial treatments today.
Absolutely. Agreed. Excellent point. I hear you on the evolution, and you really covered that very thoroughly. So to that point, let me ask you this, right? Just speaking on your expertise and just your authority in the space, you've treated easily tens of thousands of patients over the years, right?
For sure.
I would take the over under on 30,000 easily, but I'm not a gambler.
I think it's closer to 50. I worked 5
Okay.
days a week for most of my career. It's a little unusual now to find injectors doing that today. A lot of people work a more modified schedule, but I worked 5 days a week. So I had patients under my hands all day long, and I worked 5 days a week until just a few years ago. So,
Wow.
I have a lot of cases under my hands. So I would say, a conservative estimate is probably somewhere in the neighborhood of 50,000 patients. So, having that type of exposure for as many years as I have through the evolution of the very first toxin and the very first hyaluronic acid filler to where we are today with so many tools and so many options. Nobody talked about cannulas when I started. Everything was a sharp needle. So I'm a great needle injector, but I'm happily evolved to include a lot of cannula work and other tools too. But
Yeah.
the evolution of this was kind of very organic back then, because you had to find your own resources. And we used a lot of the old plastic surgery and surgical textbooks to learn anatomy, and thank God today, fast forward, we've got wonderful people like Sebastian Cotofana and Christopher Surik and Arthur Swift, and now like my colleague and friend here in Philadelphia, Dr. Subio, he and
yeah.
Cotofana did a recent vascular occlusion specific, workshop, and things like that are so critical to all of our development, whether you're just entering this space, whether you're, 4 to 8 years in, or whether you're 20 plus. We all really have such a hold of this anatomy knowledge, the tools and the tricks of the trade, and then how to really perfect your treatment base. Everybody has different patients coming in. They have different needs. Some people treat a lot of young people, and what they're asking for is vastly different than a mature practice. And I have the fortunate benefit of having both over my career. I still treat people from probably 25 to right now. My oldest patient is, I think, 87.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and there is a place for a long lifespan if you develop deep relationships with your patients and they have that trust in you. They stay with you for years. I have patients have been with me 20 plus years.
Amazing.
So it's really incredible to be involved in that type of patient journey for so long. It's nice to treat a patient for the first time, but it's really lovely to have really spent a career, keeping someone looking and feeling their best.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, you mentioned some powerhouses out there. There's definitely some heavy hitters out there in Philly. Shout out to our good friend Dr. Subio. My wife actually just did a training recently with Dr. Swift as well. We're working our way out there. She wants to get some additional training out there, maybe with Subio, maybe even with you. We'll see. So just transitioning out of this, one thing that I want to ask you before we take a quick break, Kimmi, is, everything that you've outlined, again, it just really is a testament to your authority and just your strength and position in the industry. So again, with that level of experience and level of repetition, what does that teach you that newer injectors really need to grasp and understand?
I think that the number one thing that I try to communicate to newer injectors is patience. Patience with developing their book, patience in developing their skill set. I think we're in a, fast-paced world today, and everyone wants to be an expert tomorrow. And it really does take patience for us as providers to understand that it does take time to develop really solid skills, and it's okay to be a beginner. There's nothing wrong with being a beginner. I think being transparent about where you are, for instance, your wife may have been a nurse for far longer than she's been an injector. And it's
Correct.
okay to say that you have 12 years of nursing experience, but you've been injecting for 4. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think that you do need to be transparent with your patients. You don't want to facilitate a understanding that you've been doing this career path in aesthetics for 12 years because you
Right.
haven't. And I think patients still choose based not just on experience, that should be something that's considered, but they also choose based on your personality, on your authenticity, on how you explain things and how you deliver a superb consultation. That's where they build their trust in you as a provider. So I think that beginners should be transparent about where they are, and mid-level providers should do the same. And somebody like myself, just because I'm 20 years doesn't mean I'm the best at everything. I am far from it. It's why I keep going to conferences and meetings and trainings, and I try to share the knowledge I have, but I learn every time I participate in a meeting, a conference, a podcast, a networking event, a dinner meeting. There's always something to take away from those opportunities. And so that's how I built my career. And I had lovely people who eventually became mentors. And my first mentors were people in skincare because they were probably my age now when I was learning then, just coming 5 years out of my nursing career. They took me under their wings and they explained how to communicate well with patients, how to kind of formulate a consultation or a plan, or not just this visit's treatment, how to talk to patients about, well, this is today, but let's talk about what our plan is in 3 months or in 6 months, or what we want to achieve by the end of this year, so that they can pace their treatment plan out. They can pace out their finances. You have to
Yes.
get comfortable as a newbie also with that aspect and talking about finances. I think for nurses, we are caretakers, we're providers, we're on our patient's side. We want to do the best we can for them. And finances, I thought for a very long time for me, were hard. I wanted to give everybody a big break or a big discount, or it felt like, gosh, it's so expensive to do something like, tox or filler. Oh gosh, I'm recommending a plan and it's like $3,500. Oh, I don't, maybe they can't afford that. You really start to sort of question, like, should I be doing that? Maybe I should just do tox and tell them to come back and space it out. But, I think you gain that confidence as you do more and more. And it's repetition and practice, but it's the willingness to pivot and to change up maybe what isn't working for you, or record yourself doing a consultation and share it with one of your friends or one of your peers, and let them watch that and give you really solid constructive criticism about things you can add in, or what you might want to say or word just a little bit differently that impacts the delivery or the meaning to a patient. And I think that's really critical too. We want to have really effective communication, but I would say for me as a younger injector, talking finance was tough. I sort of always envied the med spa model that had like a financial coordinator, that you gave the patient the plan and then they turfed that off and somebody else had the hard financial conversation. But that's not my practice. We don't work that way. As a nurse injector in my practice, we really comprehensively treat a patient. So when you come in, we do consult. I do photography of that patient. We talk about their top 2-3 goals. If it's a bride, maybe their top 5, because they have a longer plan, and they usually are really great about coming in 6 to 12 months ahead. So we tackle those things like in a timely fashion, and I want to highlight all of the things that concern them during their session if possible. And oftentimes they're also going to see maybe one of our colleagues within the practice space that's offering skin and laser. We have a whole team across 4 offices that also do that. And, sometimes there are people who come in hoping that they need injectables, but they really require something additional. They might need a surgical, procedure. Maybe tox isn't enough to lift a really heavy brow or a heavy eyelid, and they need some surgical assistance. So in a practice like ours, it's, uniquely suited to pass patients off through those different channels so that they get really comprehensive care. We even have a 4th location that we added back in the middle of COVID, which was a hard time to launch, but we launched a 4th location called the Bucky Body Center that was at first really developed to help patients heal and recover from their procedures, whether they be surgical or non-surgical. And then it evolved into really wellness. And so today that space is not just for our non-surgical patients and our surgical patients. It's for anyone who's really interested in, bioengineering their wellness. And we do that through a number of different avenues. But I feel like that was the one piece we didn't have, was a full recovery piece. We always had a full recovery for surgery patients, but we didn't have things as comprehensively for non-surgical. There were always some gaps. And now we have this really comprehensive facility at Bucky Plastic Surgery and Bucky Body Center that allows patients to really go from A to Z in our space and not have to refer anyone out.
Now that's cool. Anytime you can make it more convenient and, as close to being a one-stop shop for the client, that's always a win. You again, as always, Kim, you brought up some really great points. You were talking about financing, or speaking about finances rather, as a newer injector. I know just from personal experience, that was one of the big areas that my wife struggled in. Was how do I tell somebody, hey, this is $3,000, $3,500, and so on. But now, man, you should hear, she's just kicking out the numbers. It doesn't matter what it comes to. At the end of the day, if this is what you want to get done, this is what it'll cost. So let's do this, guys. We're going to take a quick break. If anybody wants to refill their glass, run to the bathroom, whatever it is, now's the time to do it. We'll take a quick break. And then I really want to get into what makes Kimmi stand out a lot, and one of the main reasons why I had her on tonight, and that's to just discuss working with male clients. So we'll take a break and we'll be right back. Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Lineage Biomedical and the NovaClick injection system. If you're an injector looking for more precision, less waste, fewer touch-ups, and an overall better patient experience, aren't we all? Then you really need to check out NovaClick. Their 1 unit per click delivery system helps improve consistency, reduce toxin waste, so you're not wasting money, and it makes treatments smoother and more comfortable for the patient. This is one of those products where once you use it, you instantly and immediately understand the difference. If you want to try NovaClick, they've made it really easy. Use the code BROTOX50 and you'll get $50 off of your order. The discount code and the QR code are right there on the screen right now. So if you're lazy, scan the QR code. If not, put those Twitter fingers to work and type it in, BROTOX50. Go check them out right now and level up your game by using NovaClick. And we're back. All right, guys. Thank you again for joining us tonight. We're back from that quick little break. Wanted to just jump back into things. We're all just really enjoying learning and being educated by Kimmi here. And again, this is the portion of the conversation I was really looking forward to. I really wanted to just dig into your expertise with male clients. So just starting from the top and going right for the core of it, let me ask you, what's the biggest difference in your experience when it comes to dealing with male versus female clients?
I think that there's a couple key differences. I think the first is that men really appreciate being direct. And so that kind of filters down into a couple of different things. I think in conversation, they like direct. They're direct about what bothers them, and they want to know how to correct or improve that. I think that they're direct with finances. I have come to very much enjoy treating my men, because if I tell a guy that it's price X and this is what it'll cost to retail, but we have a loyalty rewards program that you can pay Y for, and then you get 20% off of everything until your card balance hits zero, that is a no-brainer for a guy. Guys are like, done.
Yeah.
That makes all the sense in the world. We're going to do that. If I tell that to a female client, a few savvy souls will say, oh, that makes more sense. Let me do that.
Yeah.
But oftentimes I'll get a lot of pushback. I need to ask my husband. I don't think I want to do that today. Let me think about it. And they'll spend $3,500 on a treatment at full retail instead of spending $5,000 that they can spend anytime during the rest of the remainder of the year and receive a 20% courtesy. To me, that makes all the sense in the world, but it really only resonates unequivocally with men. So I love the
we call that
directness.
girl math, right? Girl math doesn't quite work with
the
us.
girl math, you can buy a Chanel bag for $6,000 and not blink, but you can't spend anything that you have to answer to your husband about on the credit card. It's really a tougher conversation that they don't want to have. So I love the directness of gentlemen that come in and we talk plan, we talk cost, and they make quick and very efficient decisions. And it allows us to spend the majority of our time, improving the things that they'd like to work on. And I think that makes it extremely enjoyable. I also think that for me as a provider, I really enjoy treating men because the way that I have to think about their anatomy, my filler selections, the choices, whether I want a biostimulatory, component to that, in addition to tox, which tox I prefer in men over women. There are things that cue different, thought processes in my brain when I have a guy on my chair, and I don't ever want to feminize their face. So the treatment anatomically is very different than how I treat a female client. And I think one of the best kept secrets in aesthetics is that I think that men are actually in many ways better for doing volumization, toxins, and things of that nature, because as a male client, you have a larger structural skeletal frame. You've got thicker skin. You've got bigger fat pads. There are things about male anatomy that are true across all different ethnicities that actually make you more ideal. I think men in general, as they age, they don't tend to gravitate as much. You guys don't get hangy, loose jaws and necks until much later in life. Women can see those, early signs in their late 30s and early 40s. And I think that that physical component of the male anatomy helps us to develop plans that are equally as rewarding to deliver because the results are immediate. I think that all of us can appreciate picking up a mirror, looking at our image and seeing what has been done, seeing that it's not overt, it's rather subtle, but it makes all the difference. And that you can go to work the next day, or you can go out and meet your friends for a cocktail or go to the game, and no one's going to turn and look at you, Ken, and be like, Ken, what'd you do? You look
Yeah.
weird. That's not ever the goal. And so subtleties, with men go a long way. Men don't come in asking for high arched eyebrows like women do. And if you do that, they do look overtly different or strange. And that's what we're trying to avoid by really understanding the male anatomy and what fits where. And in a woman in a mid cheek, I might choose one product, but in a gentleman, I may choose a completely different product that's a little more robust or that has more lifting capabilities for the heaviness or the weight of the tissues. So it really is another branch of aesthetics to truly understand the male anatomy and how to treat it well and to understand the male aesthetic. And in Philadelphia, I really feel like I have two separate types of men who come in. There's men who are looking for a very masculinized look. They want really contoured structure of the jawline and the chin. They want width, they want some projection, they want maybe some lateral cheek that's more masculine. And then I do have a whole nother element to the practice because we are in Center City. We have a very large, gay population in Philadelphia, and some of them like a aesthetic that is moving more towards the middle or towards the feminine. And so you have to know who's in front of you, what they're looking for. And one of the best ways to do that during a consultation, especially with men are very visual. If we show photos of other men who've had treatment who look good, but they look refreshed or more natural, that's sort of a win. And I don't just have one or two of those photos. I have, several photos of men, and I have them not just of any singular procedure. I have them for toxins. I have them for hyaluronic acid fillers. I have them for biostimulators. I have them for a combination of all of these things. And that's very, very helpful visually to be able to understand what you may look like given what this other individual who's my age, who has my face shape or structure, I know I can get a result that's similar. And that feels safe to me. That feels like what I'm looking for. There's nothing better than providing a very comprehensive, photo gallery to a patient and then taking their own photos and being able to manipulate those a little bit using some of the tech. We use a photography system. We have both Canfield and Canfield Vectra, and those help us to show patients what they can look like sometimes utilizing some of these tools. So it's nice to be able to give someone a visual. There's nothing better than a visual. And I think with AI and the other things that are coming out, that's going to become more of the expectation rather than you coming in and sitting down in my chair and saying, oh, my wife says I need tox. And I just go, okay, here, sign a consent. And then I just poke, and off you go and you pay. That's the old way of doing things in aesthetics. We're so far beyond just throwing a consent under someone's nose and doing a treatment. I really think it takes more than that. There's so much information in this space now, a lot of it good, a lot of it not so good. There's a lot of misinformation. So having a great consult really does allow us to answer all of your questions, to make sure that you understand that I understand the male anatomy specifically, that I've done this before and I've done it for many years, and that we are uniquely suited for the male aesthetic. Yes, we treat women as well, but we're pretty passionate about taking great care of our guys too. And we feel very honored that they trust us in this aesthetic space that can feel very uncertain for a lot of individuals. And it takes a lot of guts for you guys to walk in to a plastic surgery practice or a med spa and, kind of command the room and what you need and what you're looking for, and trust us to do that. And I don't take that lightly. I enjoy every bit of that relationship with our male clients.
Wow, Kimmi, you're good. You are good. You really are. I'm going to make sure my wife reaches out. I'd love for her to train with you. You're literally reading my mind. You're touching on a lot of things that I'm personally interested in. My wife has been talking about adding volume. I had massive weight loss many years ago, and she's telling me I need to fill in my, I think it's nasal labia folds or something like that. So yeah, she wants to do some filler on me as she's getting her experience. So yeah, we will probably be in Philly sooner than later.
Good. Weight loss is an interesting topic too, Ken. You know, I think with GLP-1 emergence, I love the topic of GLP-1 weight loss, or just weight loss through natural means of controlling diet, working on your exercise and being consistent. I think that more and more people, though, because of weight loss medications, come in with pretty significant facial volume loss, both men and women. And it needs to be addressed a little bit differently than your average patient who walks in the door who hasn't had weight loss. I too had a weight loss journey. About 3 years ago, I've lost a total of almost 50 pounds.
Wow.
And it drastically changes your physique, which is great, but it also really hollows out some of your, facial features. And so the amount of volume and the type of planning and the things that you need to combine to restore what you once appeared to be in terms of facial volume is much more significant and in a weight loss patient, male or female. And I think that that's an important aspect of things. I did a recent presentation at Needle Art back in November of 25. And I really talked solely about, GLP-1 weight loss and how to assist that with the use of biostimulatory, agents and HAs and toxins combined, and skin and laser, and to do the whole gamut, because weight loss is a really unique, thing. And I think, again, we have a very robust weight loss component to our practice at our Bucky Body Center. So it's becoming a larger and larger part of what we're doing. And that could also, now that we're talking about it, be why we are also seeing more men. A lot of guys come in as a gateway to weight loss. They want a DEXA scan, or they're already pretty fit, but because they're so fit and they're so active, they don't have a lot of fatty, body content, and that includes the face. And so sometimes you have a really fit physique and you feel great about it, but you look kind of gaunt in your face and it makes you look tired or more mature than you are. And I think a lot of men come in trying to sort of balance those two things. We don't want to eat more to have our face look great, but we want to make sure that we're looking and feeling our best. And a lot of times when you feel your best, you definitely want to look your best, including on your face.
They go hand in hand. So now you've educated us on kind of your process, some of the differences with the consult and how to consult men. Let's talk about, once you have a guy in your chair, or he's scheduled and he said yes, he signed the waivers and he's good to go. Let's talk a little bit about preparation.
Okay.
Even if it's a female client, what are some of the tools that you're using, or some of your go-to tools that you use?
So right now, in terms of like toxin administration, I think it's important for women, but women are more motivated no matter what it takes to get to their end point result. And we see that all the time. Women, that's why we are the ones who have the children. We're good with some discomfort, but discomfort is never our goal. And so for my male clients and all of my injectable toxins, I really have come to rely upon an innovation called NaviClick. NaviClick is a new toxin delivery system, and it is completely needleless until you screw the needle on to do your patient injection. And the things that I found in utilizing this device were that it has a number of advantages. Firstly, for the patient, the needle size is much smaller. So a traditional BD needle that we used to use has a relatively small needle on it, but it's only meant for a one-time stick for an insulin delivery. But we've been utilizing those as sort of the gold standard of injectables. Well, fast forward, and Naviclick wanted to improve upon that experience, which often was it. Patients would describe it as having a little crunchy sound, or that
Yeah.
they were rearing back at each injection point, because in fact the needle becomes dull after 2 or 3 sticks. So unless you're going to draw up 8 or 10 of those to get through an upper face plan, I think the issue when you do more and more of those insulin syringes was that you also lost product in the hub of that needle. So they solved a few things. They made it safer for providers because it's needleless and drawing it up. They made it really an ESMR type of thing because the Naviclicks actually click.
Yeah.
So like this is a Naviclick syringe for all of you. And they're color coded. So based on an injector's reconstitution of their specific toxin that they're choosing, what happens once you load the syringe in a perpendicular to the handle, that is a free flow mode. But when we click that base into place, then you can hear all the little clicks. Each click is a unit of toxin that's delivered. And so what it really has done is it's made it extremely precise. It keeps my eyes on you as the patient, and I'm engaging and I'm talking to you, and I don't have to watch my syringe moving to say that I gave 2 units or I gave 5 units. I'm hearing that as a feedback in the room as I'm utilizing the device. And then for the patient, it makes it much more comfortable because the needle is smaller. It's automatically a little less pinchy. And then the coating on it makes it feel like your first stick and your 17th stick are exactly the same feeling. There is no diminishment in the dullness of that needle, which is what typically causes people to have a little pinch or a little ouchy feeling. In some places with Naviclick, my patients don't even feel that I went in, and sometimes I'll be done and they're like, oh, but did you do right here? And I'm like, yeah, we did right there.
Yeah.
It really is minimizing the discomfort that's associated with toxin procedures. And I think the way that I looked at it when I first came across it was with Dr. Bucky at a meeting called Beauty Through Science in New York. And this is where Naviclick was sort of first exhibiting. And I think that for that meeting, Dr. Bucky called me, and I think I was doing a gain training. I wasn't at work. It was on a weekend, and I was in New York, though. I happened to be up there doing a training, and I was on the other side of town, and he said, you got to come over here. I need you to see this. I need to know if we need it. And I said, oh, gosh, I'm all the way down in the village. I got to get all the way back to Midtown, which in New York is no easy feat, especially during the holidays.
Yeah.
But I got back over there, and when we were looking at the device, I said, this is genius. Like, this is great. I don't have to pre-draw my, syringes. I don't have to pre-prepare all of my tox. So it's a time saver for an injector. It saves you money because it is a no waste syringe. So I don't lose a half a unit or a unit in the hub of my needle. So it becomes a cost savings. It's also a cost savings because I use less things in order to draw that up. So it's a win-win-win for an injector. But what it's really good for is easing the fears of patients who are a little concerned about what that's going to feel like or the pinch of the needle. And it makes them much more comfortable. They also, I think, having that little verbal cue in the feedback, they can hear it and they can count it, and it's a good distraction from the pinches that you're getting. But all I get is really positive feedback from my Naviclick use. I use it on every single toxin that I administer in my office location to all of our male and female clients, and it's been a game changer. I almost can't envision going back to using just a plain syringe. The cost, I think, is not comparable if you were literally saying, oh, I have a BD needle and I have a Naviclick, but it's all of those built-in features. It's the safety. It's the ability to be extremely precise. It's the ability to mitigate some of the discomfort with a typical toxin administration. And all of those things make this, I think, the best innovation in toxin that I've seen in my 26-year career. And I feel like I can't work without it.
Wow. Wow. I can attest. My wife has used NovaClick needles on me before. And yeah, you kind of get conditioned to listen out for the click. So for everyone out there, there is a promo code. You should see it on screen right now. We'll also run it at the end of the episode for you as well. So you can save $1 if you want to take advantage and use NovaClick. Find them on Instagram and all of their socials. Some really good people over there. I love the folks at NovaClick. So shout out to my people, Carla and even Maria. You guys are all awesome. So let's do this. We're going to take one more break. And then we'll come back. We'll close this thing out. I've got some really fun and quick questions for you. We'll have a fun, spicy conversation and wrap it up and get you out of here so you can go get a cheesesteak if it's not too late. All righty. Hey guys, today's episode is brought to you by Lineage Biomedical and the NovaClick injection system. If you're an injector looking for more precision, less waste, fewer touch-ups, and an overall better patient experience, aren't we all? Then you really need to check out NovaClick. Their 1 unit per click delivery system helps improve consistency, reduce toxin waste, so you're not wasting money, and it makes treatments smoother and more comfortable for the patient. This is one of those products where once you use it, you instantly and immediately understand the difference. If you want to try NovaClick, they've made it really easy. Use the code BROTOX50 and you'll get $50 off of your order. The discount code and the QR code are right there on the screen right now. So if you're lazy, scan the QR code. If not, put those Twitter fingers to work and type it in, Brotox50. Go check them out right now and level up your game by using NovaClick. And we're back. All right, guys. So now this is one of the most enjoyable parts of every episode for me. Let's have a little bit of fun. Okay. So, again, you've been at this for a while. Okay. So I'm just curious, in your experience, Kimmi, men versus women. Okay. Who complains more?
Oh, women, hands down.
Oh, yeah. Okay, cool. So is it safe to say that men are better patients?
In many ways, they are. Yeah. In many ways, they are.
Got you. Okay. Now, who spends more?
Women.
Of course.
For sure. But they space it out more. A guy kind of wants like one and done. They want to come in, they have their concerns. We address that full list and they're like, oh, okay, it's how much? All right, good. Where's the consent? Okay, I'm just going to sign. Oh, we need photos. All right, let's do that. And they're like, can we do it today? You guys are very decisive and it's really nice. I don't have many of my guys who come in for a consult and don't want to execute their treatment.
Okay.
But a lot of women will come in and they need to think it over and they need to pace through that. But in the end, they're there more frequently, I think, during the year, and they're a little bit more consistent with, keeping up with their talks or making their appointment before they leave, which, is a big thing. I think if you schedule it, even if that date doesn't work, it's on your brain. You know that you're due to come back in, and when you're consistent, your results speak for themselves. Of
course. That makes tons of sense. Okay, so now let me ask you some spicy industry questions. Okay?
All right, let's do it.
I think Dr. Subio would appreciate this. So what's one trend that we're seeing in the industry, whether it's recent or it's been around for a little bit, but just a trend that you really wish would go away?
Going to sound a little contradictory, but I wish that the misinformation on socials would stop. It creates a lot of extra work for us as providers in dispelling some of the misinformation. I think that there's been a lot of discourse on social, even between providers this year, which, right or wrong, I don't particularly like that as providers. And we have to remember, although we're on Instagram or TikTok, that we're still in medicine. And for me, this is and will always be a medical field. And I think that requires us to be thoughtful about the things we say, the comments that we make, how we treat others. I think we need to lead by example. And we are sadly moving away from that in aesthetics. And I'd like to bring it back. I want to bring back, the the ways of medicine that used to be. I think that you can still be verbal. I think you can still hold an opinion, but we need to be able to listen to one another. We need to be able to have honest and open debate without judgment as providers, but we also need to be very responsible about what we are putting on social media. It is my biggest pet peeve in the aesthetic arena right now, because you can't blanket statement everything. There are reasons to utilize one treatment over the next, or there are people that might not choose to use biostimulators. Maybe they're not comfortable. Maybe they had a really bad outcome once and they got scared and they don't want to go back to it. It doesn't mean they're a bad provider. I just think that, the all or nothing statements. One of the big ones this year, Ken, was hyaluronic acid is terrible for you. It never goes away, and you should never get hyaluronic acid. You should only get biostimulators. And I am a big fan of biostimulators. I use them every day in my practice, but it's not an all or nothing, and not everybody is an excellent candidate. It might not meet their goal. So if they want a result that's really good, you have to, as a provider, choose those things, but you also have to choose your voice in today's aesthetic arena, and you need to pick early on who you want to be. Are you there to educate other providers? Are you there to educate your own patients? Are you there just for fun and games and, to peruse and watch other people's pages? I think we need to decide who we are in aesthetics. And my vote is we are medical providers, and we should carry ourselves and promote ourselves accordingly. So those are my couple of pet peeves this year in the industry. And HA is not bad for you. We've been doing it for 20 plus years. It's fabulous in the right hands, with the right provider, in the right patient. It's a wonderful tool, and it's how we should think about it. It's one of many tools.
There you go. Well said. Well said, Kimmi. Again, you're good. You're good at this. Okay, so you travel a lot. I've mentioned that a few times. So currently, as it stands right now, okay, let's say you have a free weekend or even a free week, no work. What's your favorite travel destination right now? Where are you going and what are you doing?
If I had my unlimited budget and I could leave for a week, I would return immediately to Ischia in Italy. It's one of the islands, and it's the furthest out, so a lot of people skip it. They go to Capri and Positano and Sorrento because they're a little easier to get to. It's a longer path out to Ischia, but I find that it is sort of untouched Italian coastline. You don't have as much tourists. You don't have as much influence from the outside. And so it feels like a very authentic Italian summer vacation to be there. So I think it's a magical place. I love it, and I would go back so many times if I could. I've been twice, but I would absolutely jump on an opportunity to go there.
Okay, I'm taking notes. I am going to write that down. What's a must-have dish when in Italy?
Oh, cacio e pepe. They don't make it as well anywhere else. You can get it all over the place. It's a common dish, but they make it the best in Italy and in Rome specifically. For me, I think that's a very Roman dish, and it's the best there. Okay.
I'm my go-to is calamari, so I'll have to venture out.
You would love the Italian coast. It's definitely for you.
Okay. Well, you don't have to twist my arm. We'll be on the lookout for the invite whenever you're ready to go. So with that said, when you travel, I always say this almost on every episode, I am a notorious overpacker, right?
It's hard not to be.
Yeah.
We like choices.
Yeah, exactly. Men, we like options. I am definitely an option person. I'm good for a couple of outfits or suits that either never make it out of my luggage or they never make it out of the hotel closet. So I'll ask you, Kimmi, would you consider yourself an overpacker, underpacker? I think you did a little foreshadowing already.
I think that I've been, over the years, more chronically an overpacker than an underpacker. However, I do believe that for like a weekend or like a 2 or 3 day trip, and outside of going to a wedding where you need like formal attire or something, you should be able to get into a carry-on. And I would never go back to the Italian islands with anything more than a carry-on. It's absolutely advised against. You would never probably find me to ever do that again. It makes your trip not enjoyable.
Wow, really? Are you just like beachside the whole time, or is it
You
is
know, things are just different. Europe is old, and certain communities there, particularly the coastal and the islands, you're taking a water ferry to most of those locations and destinations, and you have a very small like ramp that you have to go up. And trust me, if you have a 50-pound giant American suitcase, first of all, it's like a big red flag, like, oh, there's
Yeah.
the American with all the stuff.
Yeah.
But secondly, it's really hard to navigate it. And once you get to these islands, there is a threshold in the island where there's no more automobiles. So you're walking
Ah,
and you're walking uphill or upstairs carrying that heavy bag. So you
okay.
pack light when you go to some of those destinations. But when I go to like places we mentioned earlier, I just got back from the Grand Cayman Islands, and I'm going there. It's like it's 5 days. It's really hard to get into a carry-on for 5 days when you've got
Exactly.
multiple dinners and excursions and
Yeah.
things planned. So I brought a full suitcase, but I didn't bring an additional carry-on. I only
Okay.
had my suitcase and my purse, my tote on the plane. So I felt like I did pretty well this time. And both my girlfriend Melissa and I, who I traveled with, we got to the end of the day, we're packing up to go home, and both of us only had one thing that we didn't wear. So I felt
Ah,
justified in bringing what I brought.
good job. Good job. Well done. That's a win. That would be a win in my book for sure. So let me ask you this, okay? So again, maintaining the travel theme. What is a non-negotiable must-have in any hotel? If you're booking at that hotel,
Oh.
gotta have this.
Gosh, I'm a bougie hotel girl. They always have
Okay.
everything I need. I try to book, for me, I don't go away as often as I would like to be able to with a busy practice. So when I do go away, I really don't want to have to try and adjust around my accommodations. I want my accommodations to adjust around me. So I tend to try and book, a really solidly reviewed boutique hotel when I'm in Europe.
Hmm.
When I'm in the US, I'm going to typically, again, same thing. I want a newer build. I want like a new Four Seasons. Here in Philadelphia, we have I think one of the best Four Seasons in the country. It's so beautiful, and the views are great. The staff is outstanding, and anything you possibly could need, want, or forgot, they will figure out how to get it for you. So that's my go-to. I like a full service hotel experience. I'm not an Airbnb girl. I've done it a few
Okay.
times, but it's not relaxing to me. I like to kind of be in my own little space, and I like the concierge, and I like
Yes.
the cleaning services, and I like to be off duty when I'm off duty. So
I
that would be
hear
my
you.
choice.
I hear you. Right on to that. I agree. I'll take a nice upscale bougie hotel over an Airbnb any day. My go-tos, I need a good iron and a solid hotel bar. Give me those two things.
My
And
little brother used to always say he needs a good iron. He likes to be very pressed.
yep,
So I
yep.
think that's a good thing. I use those new packing things that take all the air out of everything, so you can pack
Ah,
more. So
okay.
that's a packing savior, is to do compression bags,
Yeah.
and you do sometimes need an iron when you take your stuff out of there, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a control freak. I'm gonna iron it no matter what. I don't feel good unless I have myself put the iron in my hands on it.
Oh,
So,
your wife's a lucky girl. You're the ironer of the house. That's
yep, that is my assignment. Yeah, I iron her stuff too. So anytime you see her looking good, if you don't see an iron, or excuse me, if you don't see a wrinkle, I'll take the credit for that. So, okay. So before I get you out of here, Kimmi, I do want to ask one more travel question, and then I have one more question for you after that. But again, you're an extensive traveler. I follow you on Instagram. You jet set. So what's one destination that you haven't been to yet that is on your list?
good. I can tell you a few. I have a long-standing to-do list for travel.
Okay.
One of them is Africa,
Okay.
to do safari and really kind of visit the country. I would really also like to go to Japan
Okay.
and South Korea. South Korea is the mecca of all things aesthetic, and I love some of the Korean skincare and the treatments and the way they layer and combine. So that would be on my top three. And Greece. I'd like to go to Greece too.
Okay.
It's just a little further than going to Italy and London and some of the other, destinations in Europe. So it's taken me a little longer to get there, but I hope to see Greece soon too.
Something tells me you'll be checking all of those off your list. I don't doubt that at all. So, Kimmi, before I let you go, I want to ask you and just give you the opportunity to share with us, everyone listening and tuning in to see this episode, where can we expect to see you this year, all throughout 2026? How can the viewers and again, the listening audience, how can they find you? What are your socials? Where will you be? How can people connect with you and your greatness?
I will be mostly in my office at Bucky Plastic Surgery in Philadelphia. I'm in our Rittenhouse Square location. Our socials are at Bucky Plastic Surgery, all one word. And my social is at _beauty ratio. And you can always connect with me there. I am pretty responsive to my DMs at this point. I keep a pretty small page, so it's still manageable for me. Where am I? I am traveling next week. I have a birthday, and then I'm heading on a plane to go to train the trainer for Gain. I'll be in Las Vegas there.
Okay.
Coming back, and I have less than 2 weeks at home, and then I'm going to the aesthetic meet in Boston. I'll be speaking at the plastic surgery meeting there for the society and on a regenerative panel. And one of the highlights of that is one of my mentees is going to be on a panel with me. I feel like I've come full circle. One of the very first people I mentored in aesthetics is also going to be on a panel with me. So that's really exciting. And then after that, it's TBD really, but I haven't decided on my rest of my meetings for the year. I spent a really aggressive meeting schedule over the last 4. I'm taking a little time out this summer for myself, but I'll still be providing trainings for Gain. And I'll be providing trainings for Evolus Academy, which has been really a joy, new training staff for them. And I just got back from London recently, which is one of the things that you saw on my Instagram.
Yeah.
And I was really fortunate to be able to go with my colleagues, Valerie and Kate, who are our other, injectors in our other 2 locations. And we got to spend some time there. And we were 3 of only 20 people who were at that meeting. So that felt like one of those career special moments that was just spectacular and had a really good exchange. So you can catch me in a private training by DMing me. You can also catch me in one of the industry trainings for either Gain or Evolus, and at the aesthetic meet coming up in Boston. And after that, like I said, to be determined.
Catch you where
Maybe
we
aesthetic
can.
next. I haven't been there in a couple of years, so I feel like I'm due.
Come to Aesthetic Next. We'll be there. My wife and I will be there. We can hang out and kick it.
I would love that.
Yeah, I'll be at the hotel bar.
There you go.
Yeah. They have good irons and an excellent bar at that hotel. So yeah.
They do have a great bar. That bar upstairs is nice.
Yep. So I would love to see you there. Well, Kimmi, it is late on the East Coast. I do have the advantage of being out here in California. I can't thank you enough. Like I said, you are our first female guest, and you have now set the bar. So ladies, anyone else, this is going to be a tough act to follow, but I really appreciate your time. I thank you for sharing your background, your story, and most importantly, your expertise with us. I've learned a lot. I think everyone has taken something away. Guys, I hope you've taken notes. Like she said, don't hesitate. Reach out to her on Instagram, slide in her DM, ask some questions, and then, take her word as gospel and share it with your local injector. And if it doesn't match up, you might want to get a second opinion. So again, Kimmi, thank you so much. If you have any final words, feel free to share them.
Thank you so much for having me, Ken. It's been a pleasure. We really do enjoy taking care of our guys, and I love that you have this format and forum for men in the aesthetic industry, whether they're on the industry side, whether they're prospective patients trying to learn a little bit more. I love an educational platform like this. So thanks for having me and the opportunity, and for NaviClick, for innovations in tax administration. Really, really appreciate it. It's been a fun podcast to do.
There we go. Good stuff. All righty, guys. I will see you soon. Thank you again for joining us on another episode of Brotox and Chill. Good night.